first you, Shadan. I've listed out 10 of the major amendments or 10 new facts that this bill seems to bring into the Waqf Property Act. Your view, how do you see these amendments? Do these amendments bring, as the government is claiming, greater transparency and accountability in the functioning of the Waqf?
So my view is, see, it's common knowledge that the way Waqfs have functioned so far, it's not ideal, right? So there is, I think everybody recognizes that there is a need for some improvement or change in that respect. And I think the Muslim community per se has also not been able to get the kind of benefits which the idea of a charitable trust like this envisages. But you've asked the right question, that do these amendments help in that process? And I'm not so sure. I think it will have to be seen whether it first gets passed and then how it works out. But to be honest, I'm a little skeptical today for two or three reasons. One is that what you are changing really is who controls the Waqf institutions. So you are introducing what through introduction of non-Muslims, etc. You are trying to secularize it. But I think there's a fundamental problem in secularizing a religious trust. Correct? I think there is an element of secularization needed in a lot of things, maybe even personal laws. But when you are secularizing a religious trust, in my view, that is straight in the face of Article 26 of the Constitution. Article 26 of the Constitution says that subject to public order, morality, and health, every religious denomination or any action thereof shall have the right to maintain, to establish and maintain institutions of religious and charitable purpose. Correct? Now, therefore, the Muslim community has a right under the Constitution, under Article 26, to maintain what is a dedication to Allah, as it were, and to run it through in the manner in which it wishes. The state cannot intervene. Now, somebody is going to ask the question, but listen, there was already an act which was there. So, didn't the state already intervene? And the answer to that is that yes, there was an act, but that was primarily or fundamentally a facilitative act for self-regulation. It did not take it away from the community. The nature, some of the amendments which have been made here, effectively, by introducing a secularizing project into this, have taken it away from the community, and that is in the teeth of Article 26. Number one. Number two, I think some aspects such as registering and then losing a right over non-registration. There are thousands and thousands of Waqf properties being maintained in this country, right? Now, if in 6 months you don't register, you lose the right. I think it's a bit of a draconian provision. I find that a bit of a draconian provision. And also vis-a-vis government properties, I think the government now gets more, where there's a dispute between a government, that it's a government property and a Waqf property. I think if government is effectively, or government officer is deciding, I think that change also tilts the balance in favor of the government and takes it away from what could be otherwise a more balanced adjudication process. So I think those are some of the questions which arise. Whether it will actually, I don't see any obvious thing of better management of Waqf. I think potential amendments could have been done with keeping the existing composition, but requiring better management. That would have been possibly a better route to amendment than what has been adopted presently.
You know, I just want to once again understand from you, Shadan, that there were concerns that the Waqf board was opaque, that decisions could be taken by them without sufficient external regulation. A decision taken by a Waqf tribunal could not even be challenged in the courts. This amendment is making it very clear that those decisions will be now challenged in a court. If, as you said, there is a dispute involving government land, the district collector and an officer above that will then be able to have a say in the matter. Are we fear-mongering when we say all of this will result in some way in an interference in religious practices? At the end of the day, should it be treated as a religious practice or a property? Or a property that therefore needs some kind of oversight?
See, it is a Islamic religious, the basis of it is a Islamic religious trust, which is a trust in favor of Allah for a certain purpose. You can have Waqf even for horses, you can have Waqf for animals. Purpose is this thing, but the dedication is to God, right? It's a concept in Islam. Now, you will dedicate your property for A, B, or C purpose. Muslims have been doing it for decades and centuries, correct? Now, today, if it is fundamentally a religious thing, of course, it relates to property. If the state were to intervene and take it away from the community, of course, there are serious constitutional questions which arise. And yes, you are right that there is a requirement for improvement. But like I said, that could have been done by making the existing mechanisms more transparent. I mean, there's so many things in this country which require better transparency, including the collegium of the Supreme Court. But you don't do away with it. You can improve it. right? So there could have been requirements of making decisions public, and it is not entirely correct to say that any statutory body in this, including Waqf tribunal decisions, will be challenging in a writ court and in the Supreme Court. So it's not as if it is something which was completely unchallengeable. It was just that the disputes will not go in a regular suit to begin with. The beginning point was not a court, but of course it was subject to confirmation by the constitutional courts, namely the High Court in the writ jurisdiction or the Supreme Court thereafter.
You know, there is though a sense, Shadan, as you said, that there is a need for reform. You
I
can't
agree with
get
that.
away.
And I
You know, you
absolutely
can't.
agree. Yes.
So let's be very clear that what were the reforms that you believe are needed to make the Waqf Board properties more transparent
Yes.
and importantly
Yes.
serve
Yes.
the purposes of charity which they are meant for?
Correct. So I think a regular audit, a mandatory audit of each of the waqfs, mandatory disclosure of the salaries of the mutawallis, what were the amounts being used, basically accountability, financial accountability of the people who were in charge was what would have brought a lot more transparency and a much needed wherewithal in needed reform, which is audit. And what is happening, like any institution, some people capture it, then they misuse it for their personal purpose, they make money out of it. These are the kind of things which happen in Waqf Board and Waqf properties. Now you have to remove that. Now, I don't know how the existing amendments really address that. There's no provision for audit. There's no provision for accountability. There's no provision for transparency on salaries. There's no provision for declaring to public as to which money is being used where. There's no efficiency, although the title is efficiency in terms of the bill. It's titled as, like so many things, the government has titled it something, but the contents of that title, the effective mechanisms of the title in the statute are missing.
You know, Amit Shah has clarified, saying no non-Muslim would come into the Waqf. There is no provision to include any non-Muslim in managing religious institutions. He is trying to address the question that there will be an interference in religious institutions by non-Muslims. Is that sufficient clarification? This apparently is one of the amendments particularly brought under pressure from some of the coalition allies.
So let's see I have seen the existing bill as it was introduced in the morning today in Lok Sabha. I don't know if there is any further change to it which will be proposed by the government. If there is and some provisions are modulated, amended, some concerns are taken on board by the government, that's a welcome step. So, I don't know what the Home Minister is referring to, which exact provision, but we'll have to see if there is any provision which is further modulated, then that's a welcome step by the government.
Overall, though, when it is suggested that this is anti-constitution, do you believe it's anti-constitution? Is that stretching it to suggest that this is against the constitution of the country?
See, my understanding I have prima facie examined it. My sense is some provisions there could certainly have be constitutionally very questionable. Will the entire bill, every provision is constitutionally untenable? I don't think so. But I think there are certain provisions there which are certainly constitutionally quite questionable. But not that everything which is done there is necessarily has a constitutional question attached to it.
Shadan Farasat, for giving us your legal expert view as someone who's tracked this issue for a long time, I appreciate you joining me, Shadan. Thank you so much.